There was a cardboard box in the corner of the study, beneath the window. It wasn't a large box, but it looked heavy, settled on the wooden floor with a quiet permanence. The dust of many months, perhaps years, coated its brown surface, softening its edges and making the packing tape that sealed it nearly the same color as the cardboard itself. The late afternoon light spilled through the window, a golden rectangle that touched the floor just inches from the box, yet never fully illuminated it. The air in the study was still and quiet, carrying the gentle scent of old books and aged wood. Maybe this is just another one of those quiet stories made to help you relax. And sometimes that's all we really need. For a long time, the box had been just another piece of furniture, an object overlooked in the daily routine. But today, something was different. A desire for order, a need to resolve small, lingering tasks drew the eye to that forgotten corner. There was a memory tied to that box, a mental image that floated at the edge of consciousness, the image of a photograph. A specific photograph, not in an album nor in a drawer, but tucked away precariously between the pages of a book. And that book, most certainly, was inside that box. The decision formed effortlessly, like water finding a path. It was time to open the box. It was time to find that photograph and give it a proper home. The idea was not of an urgent task, but of a necessary care. The promise of rescuing something small and valuable from being forgotten brought a sense of calm purpose to the room. The study, with its tall shelves and its large wooden desk, seemed to be waiting for this very activity. First, the space had to be prepared. The large desk in the center of the room was covered with a few papers and one or two open books. With slow, deliberate movements, everything was cleared away. The papers were stacked and placed on a tray. The books were closed and returned to their shelves. The surface of the desk became free, revealing the dark, smooth grain of the wood. A soft cloth was passed over it, gathering any trace of dust and leaving a subtle gleam behind. The desk was ready, a clean stage for the work to come. The box was dragged from the corner to the center of the room. The sound was low and drawn out, a soft friction against the wooden floorboards. Placing it on the desk required a small effort. Its weight confirmed it was full of books. The packing tape sealing it was dry and brittle. With the tip of a fingernail, one of the corners came loose. The rest came away easily, tearing with a dry, satisfying sound. The cardboard flaps were folded back, revealing the contents. The scent that rose from the box was unmistakable. The smell of old paper, of dried glue, and of stored time. It was a dry, not unpleasant aroma that spoke of attics and quiet places. Inside, the books were packed tightly, spines of various colors and thicknesses pressed against one another. Some were hardcover, others softcover. None looked especially rare or valuable. They were simply books that had been read and put away. Somewhere inside one of them was the photograph. The search was about to begin, not with haste, but with the patience of someone looking for something that already belongs to them, only temporarily lost. The goal was clear: to find the image, and in doing so, bring a little more order and care to this quiet space. The first step was to create a system. Tipping all the books out onto the desk at once would create chaos, the very opposite of what was intended. The plan was simple. Remove each book one at a time, inspect it briefly, and create two piles on the desk, one for the books to be checked page by page, and another for those unlikely to hold the photograph.
Beside the desk, there was a small chair. Upon it, the necessary tools were placed: a brush with very soft bristles to dust the covers without scratching them, a clean, dry cotton cloth, and a small wooden tray to hold any other items that might be found between the pages: a forgotten bookmark, a pressed flower, a note. The space was now prepared for methodical, careful work. The first book was lifted from the box. It was a hardcover novel, deep blue, with golden letters that were already a bit faded. The dust coating it was gently swept away with the brush. The soft bristles glided across the cover, and small clouds of dust rose and dissipated in the window's light. The book was opened to the first page. Nothing. It was fanned through quickly, the pages passing in a low, rustling whir. No photograph fell out. It was placed in the pile of books to be checked more carefully later. The second was a paperback with a yellowed cover and worn edges. Its scent was a little stronger, a bit sweeter. This one, too, was cleaned and quickly thumbed through. Nothing. It was set down beside the first. The process continued, book after book. A volume of poetry with a cloth cover, a technical manual filled with diagrams and tables, a collection of short stories with a broken spine. Each one was taken from the box, cleaned with the brush, and placed in one of the piles. The sunlight streaming through the window began to shift, growing more orange and soft. The rectangle of light on the floor stretched out, now touching the leg of the desk. The silence of the study was broken only by the soft sound of the brush on a book's cover, the rustle of pages, and the quiet thud of each volume being set upon the desk. The box slowly emptied. The pile of books to be checked grew steadily.
From one of the books, a small rectangle of paper fell out as it was turned over. It wasn't the photograph. It was an old train ticket, the date printed in a faded typeface. It was placed carefully in the wooden tray, a small fragment of a past journey. In another, between the pages of a botany book, there was a clover leaf, pressed and dry, almost transparent against the light. It too went into the tray, little echoes of other times, found by chance. The task was repetitive but not tiresome. There was a rhythm to it, a steady flow of motion. Take, clean, flip, stack. It was a form of meditation, focused on a simple physical goal. The mind didn't wander far. It was right there, present, feeling the texture of each cover, observing the faded colors, listening to the quiet sounds of the work. Finally, the box was empty. Its cardboard bottom was exposed, showing the marks and stains of time. On the desk, 2 piles of books now stood, organized and clean. The larger was for the books that needed a thorough search, the smaller for those that seemed less likely to hide anything, like the technical manuals or the very thin paperbacks. The first phase was complete. The empty box was placed on the floor beside the desk. The workspace was now fully occupied by the books, waiting for the next step. A moment was taken to observe the scene, the golden light, the stacks of books, the promise of the photograph hidden somewhere among all those pages. The next stage required more attention. It was time to go through each book in the main pile, page by page. The chair was pulled closer to the desk, and the table lamp was switched on, adding a warm, focused pool of light to the workspace, complementing the fading natural light. The first book from the larger pile was picked up. It was the dark blue hardcover novel. It was opened carefully,
the scent of its pages filling the air for a moment. The process was slow. The right thumb slid along the top edge of each page, turning it, while the eyes quickly scanned the surface of each one. The first 50 pages revealed nothing. The only companion was the sound, the dry whisper of paper. The printed words passed by like a blurred landscape. All attention was on touch and peripheral vision. Page 100, page 200. The book was thick. With every turned page, the thickness on the left side grew, while the right side diminished. It was visible, tangible progress. Upon reaching the end of the book, nothing was found. It was closed with a soft sound and placed in a new pile, the checked pile. One book down. The next was picked up, a collection of essays with a cardstock cover. It was thinner, so the search was quicker. The pages were rougher to the touch. Again, nothing. It was added to the checked pile.
The work continued at this steady, calm pace, book after book. Some had notes in the margins, written in a fine, elegant hand. Others had small tea or coffee stains, maps of small accidents from the past. Each book had its own silent personality. Time passed unnoticed. Outside, the sky began to darken, and the light from the lamp on the desk became the main source of illumination in the study. In one of the books, a leather bookmark with a small clover engraved on its tip was found. It had been left near the final chapter. It was placed in the wooden tray, along with the train ticket and the clover leaf. The small collection of found treasures was growing. The pile of books to be checked shrank, while the checked pile grew. It was a slowly shifting balance, a visual record of the progress. With each finished book, there was a small sense of accomplishment, even though the photograph had not yet appeared. The search itself was the focus, the mindful attention given to each movement. A short break was taken, a stretch of the back, a sip of water. The gaze swept across the study, now in twilight, with the lamp on the desk lit up like an island of activity. The silence seemed deeper now as night drew near. The scent of the books seemed more concentrated in the air. The search resumed. The next book was a book of poetry with a flexible cover and thin, almost translucent pages. Turning its pages required a lighter touch so as not to tear them. The poems were short, with a lot of white space around them. This made the visual search easier, and it was there, near the middle of the book, that something was found. Not the photograph, but a tiny blue feather, very small and delicate, tucked between two poems about the sky. It was removed with the fingertips and placed on the tray, a small, unexpected touch of color. The pile of unchecked books was now less than half its original size. Hope did not diminish. The certainty that the photograph was in there somewhere was a silent guide. The task would continue, page by page, until the very last book was closed. Night had now completely settled outside the window, which reflected the image of the study like a dark mirror. The only light came from the lamp, creating an intimate circle of work in the vast darkness of the room. The pile of books to be checked was getting smaller and smaller, and the feeling that the discovery was near began to grow. The next book was a novel by an unknown author with an illustrated cover showing a coastal landscape. The cover was a bit worn at the corners,
a sign that it might have been a favorite. It was opened. The pages were soft, made supple with use. The process of turning them continued, methodical and patient. The sound of the paper was familiar and comforting.
This time, the search felt different. There was an intuition, a subtle shift in focus. The pages were turned a little more slowly. The eyes were not just looking for an object, but also absorbing fragments of sentences, names of characters, the flow of the text that had once captured someone's attention. At a certain point, near the middle of the book, the fingers felt a difference, a slight ripple in the paper, a subtle thickness that didn't belong to the page. The heart beat a little faster, but the movements remained calm. The page was turned with extra care, and there it was. The photograph didn't fall out. It was nestled perfectly between two pages, as if it had been placed there with the intention for it to stay. It was a black and white photo, rectangular in shape, with the serrated edges typical of old pictures. Its surface was slightly glossy, but time had dulled it to a matte finish in places. The photograph was lifted from the book with the fingertips, holding it by the edges. It was placed gently in the center of the lamp's circle of light. The book it came from was closed and set aside, its mission accomplished. For a moment, all that existed was that small image on the wooden desk. The photograph showed two people, a young man and woman standing in a garden. The sun was bright, judging by the sharp shadows on the ground and the way they were squinting slightly. They were both smiling, not a posed smile to the camera, but a genuine one meant for each other. The woman wore a simple summer dress, and her hair was pinned up. The man wore a short-sleeved shirt and light-colored trousers. Behind them was a stone wall covered in ivy and some flowers that, even in black and white, seemed vibrant. The quality of the image was remarkable for its age. The details were clear. The texture of her dress, the crease in his trousers, the individual leaves of the ivy on the wall. It was a moment frozen in time, an instant of joy and light captured on photographic paper. The paper itself was thick and slightly curved at the edges from being pressed inside the book for so long. There was no rush. The moment was for contemplation. The photograph was turned carefully. On the back, written in blue ink that had now faded, was a single word: always. The handwriting was fluid and slanted. The search was over. The main goal of the evening had been reached. The photograph, once a vague memory, was now a physical, real object resting beneath the warm light of the lamp. The feeling was not of euphoria, but of a deep peace, the satisfaction of finding what was sought. Now the second part of the mission would begin, to give this little treasure a place of honor. With the photograph safe on the desk, the task shifted from searching to preservation. The first step was to clean and prepare the photograph itself. It wasn't dirty, but a fine, nearly invisible layer of paper dust might be resting on its surface. One of the clean cotton cloths was picked up. With an extremely light, almost weightless touch, the cloth was wiped across the surface of the image. The motion was slow, from the center to the edges, ensuring no pressure was applied. The photo's subtle sheen became a little more apparent. The back was cleaned in the same way. It was a gesture of care, of respect for the object and the memory it held. Now it needed a home. Rummaging through drawers for an album felt wrong. This photo was unique. It deserved something of its own.
The memory of a small wooden picture frame kept in the bottom drawer of the desk came to mind. The drawer was opened with a low creak. There in the back, behind some boxes of paper clips and old pens, it was. The frame was simple, made of a light-colored wood, perhaps pine. Dust had found it there too. It was taken out and placed on the desk, next to the photograph. The frame was in need of some restoration. The wood was dry and lifeless, and the glass was hazy. The work began by taking it apart. On the back, small metal tabs held a pressed wood backing in place. With a fingernail, each tab was carefully bent upward. The backing was removed, followed by a piece of cardstock that served as a mat, and finally, the small pane of glass. Each component was laid out separately on the desk. The glass was treated first. A bit of glass cleaner was sprayed onto another clean cloth, and the pane was polished on both sides. The motions were circular and firm. Soon, the glass was completely transparent, without a single smudge or streak, like a window to whatever lay behind it. It was set aside on a cloth to prevent scratching. Next, the wooden frame. A bottle of lemon oil for furniture was found in a cabinet. A few drops were applied to a third clean cloth. The wood was massaged with the oil. The color of the wood immediately deepened, shifting from a pale beige to a golden honey tone. The grain of the wood, once almost invisible, now stood out in dark, elegant lines. The clean citrus scent of the lemon oil filled the air around the desk, mingling with the smell of old books. The entire frame was treated, front, back, and sides, until it had a nourished look and a satin sheen. The backing board was wiped with a dry cloth. The cardstock mat was a bit yellowed. A decision was made to replace it. In one of the drawers, there was a sheet of heavy, cream-colored art paper. Using the old cardstock as a template, a new mat was cut with a pair of scissors with straight, precise edges. All the components were now clean and renewed. The assembly could begin. Reassembling the frame was the final step, a process requiring the same precision and care as the cleaning. The workspace, once full of books, now held only the renewed pieces and the photograph awaiting its new home. First, the wooden frame, now with a rich color and a fresh scent, was placed face down on the soft cloth. The small pane of glass, perfectly clear, was fitted into place. It settled with a near inaudible click, fitting perfectly into the frame's recess. A final check against the lamplight confirmed there were no fingerprints or dust particles on the inside. Next came the most delicate moment. The photograph was picked up by its edges. It was positioned carefully over the glass, image side down. It was adjusted with a fingertip so that it was perfectly centered within the frame's opening. It was important that the alignment was just right, that the garden's horizon in the photo was parallel to the edge of the frame. Once the photograph was in the exact position, the new cream-colored art paper mat was placed over it. The paper was firm and provided a clean, neutral backing for the image. Finally, the pressed wood backing board was set in place, covering everything. The small metal tabs were bent back down one by one, pressed firmly with the pad of the thumb. They secured the entire assembly in place, ensuring that nothing would shift. The picture frame was assembled. It was turned over. For the first time, the photograph was seen through the clean glass, surrounded by the warmed wood. The frame didn't compete with the image, it complemented it. The warm tone of the wood enhanced the nostalgia of the black and white. The glass protected the image, giving it a clarity and a depth it didn't have before. The smiles of the two people in the garden seemed more present, more alive. The frame was stood upright on the desk, using its small easel back. It balanced perfectly. The work was complete. The books, once the focus of attention, now sat in orderly stacks, silent. The tray with the small findings, the train ticket, the cloverleaf, the blue feather sat beside it. But the center of it all was the small picture frame, a transformed object that now held a rescued memory. All the cleaning supplies were put away. The cloths were folded, the furniture oil capped and stored. The desk was wiped clean again, leaving only the picture frame in its center. The books would be returned to the shelves later. For now, the main task was complete. All that remained was to find the perfect place for it in the study, a place where it could be seen not as a showpiece, but as a serene, integral part of the room. With the picture frame ready, the search for its final place began. This was not a decision to be rushed. The object was held in both hands, its weight pleasant and solid. The study, in the quiet of the night, offered many possibilities.
The first option was the desk itself. The frame was placed in a corner near the lamp. There it was well lit, a constant companion during hours of reading or writing. For a few minutes it remained there. It looked good, but perhaps it was a little too close, too much a part of the active workspace. The photograph called for a calmer place, one of contemplation. Next, attention turned to the bookshelves that lined one of the walls. There were a few empty spaces between the rows of spines. The frame was carried over and placed on a shelf at eye level, between a set of leather-bound classics and a collection of poetry. The wood of the frame matched the dark wood of the bookshelf. There, the photograph became part of a world of stories, a small visual portal in the midst of so many written narratives. It was a good option, harmonious and discreet. But there was another place. Across the room, there was a small side table next to a comfortable reading armchair. On this table, there was only a small vase with a dried branch and nothing else. It was a space of stillness, a corner of the room dedicated to rest. The frame was brought over. It was set upon the small table next to the vase. The effect was immediate. That corner, once a bit empty and impersonal, gained a focal point of warmth and meaning. The soft light from a nearby floor lamp fell upon the small table, illuminating the photograph in a gentle, indirect way. That was it. That was the right place. From the armchair, the photograph could be seen clearly. It didn't impose, it was simply present. The smiles of the two people in the garden seemed to echo the tranquility of that reading nook. It was a place the gaze could drift to during a pause in reading, a small reminder of a happy moment. A step was taken back to see the composition from the center of the room. The entire study seemed more balanced. The task that began with a dusty box in the corner had resulted not just in a restored object, but in a subtle, welcome shift in the room's atmosphere. Order had not just been brought to the books, a new, more complete emotional order had settled over the space. Sitting in the armchair for a moment, the gaze rested on the photograph. The journey was complete. From the uncertainty of its location, through the patient search, the discovery, the careful restoration, and finally the placement in its place of honor. Each step was taken with calm and intention. The result was a feeling of peace and of a job well done. The memory was no longer lost between yellowed pages, but was present, safe, and visible, bringing its silent light into the quiet room. The work was finished.
The books that had been inspected were carried in small stacks back to the empty shelves, filling the spaces with their colorful spines. The large wooden desk was now completely clear, reflecting the soft light of the lamp. The empty cardboard box was folded and put away. The study was tidier than it had been at the start of the day. A cup of tea was prepared in the kitchen and brought into the study. The desk chair was pushed away, and the armchair in the reading nook invited rest. Sitting there, with the warmth of the cup in hand, the room itself seemed to breathe slowly. The night outside was silent. No streetlights intruded upon the window, only a deep darkness. Inside the study, the light was warm and contained, creating a sanctuary of calm. The scent of chamomile tea mingled softly with the lingering smell of old polished wood and old paper. The gaze traveled around the room, resting for a moment on each object, on the rows of books now organized, on the smooth surface of the desk, and finally on the small picture frame on the side table. The lamplight created a small gleam on the glass, and the image behind it seemed soft and timeless. There was nothing left to do. The task had been fulfilled. The small imbalance that started the whole process, the memory of a lost photograph, had been resolved. The result was a visible order and a feeling of inner quietude. Steam rose from the teacup in small spirals that uncurled into the air. The silence was not empty, but filled with the quiet presence of things in their proper places. The photograph in its frame was not just an object, it was an anchor, a closing point for a cycle of care. The study felt complete, at peace with itself. And in that silence, in that warmth, the night moved on, slow and serene.